So we have about an hour here. My name is Robin Jaffin. I am the co-founder along with Day Wilson of FODMAP Every Day. I am the person you don't normally see. Day is normally the hostess here, but she has had some dental work done, and so she will just be joining us in the background and answering questions that are very specific to her expertise on IBS. But I am super excited to be able to introduce to you Isabelle Tierney. I met Isabelle myself at the beginning of this year when I undertook her Feel Good Breakthrough Challenge. That was an extraordinary gift that I gave to myself. And after I underwent this sort of stress management and Feel Good Breakthrough Challenge methodology, with her and her team for 2 weeks, I came back to Day and I thought this was an extraordinary opportunity for our readers of FODMAP Every Day in our community. Isabelle is a licensed therapist and a stress management expert. She has been working, she will tell you how long she's been working, but for most of her life in this arena. She has a personal story that she can share. She also has a professional methodology that she has developed now along also with her team that she is rolling out in workplaces and also to the community at large. She has a Feel Good Challenge that is coming up on September 7th, which we will also send you the registration link for. It is a free 7-day journey where you will get to do a deeper dive into the methodology that she's going to give you an overview of and a taste of today. And we believe that this is actually a very effective and useful methodology that anyone can apply to their life, because we recognize that for many of us, IBS is either a stress-induced situation or our IBS creates stress. So in either direction, the tools that you're going to get introduced to today are going to help you start to, one, identify what are the stresses that are contributing to your IBS, and also then give you the ability to figure out how to start to mitigate that. Isabelle, I'd love to be able to turn this over to you so that we can give you as much of the time as we can. Again, I just would like to say to everyone, this is recorded. We are going to be asking you questions. Please participate. You're going to ask you to write your answers in the chat space. If you are on Facebook, please also in the comments, you can write there, and one of our team is going to be able to make sure that Isabelle sees those as well and can respond to those. And then after this is over, we will be sending everybody a recap with the links to all of the articles that we are going to reference, so you don't have to take notes if you don't want to. You will also be able to get the links to Isabelle's website and to the registration and to her Facebook group, which we really encourage you to participate in as well. So Isabelle, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's always so interesting to be seen through the eyes of someone else. So as you were saying, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am also a stress management expert, and I'm a speaker and trainer. And the reason that I am so passionate about stress and that I want to speak as widely as I can about this methodology is because I was, like many, many people are, whether we struggle with IBS or not, I was a woman who had 3 children, a husband, a house, and a career as a therapist that was very, very full and very, very busy. And so on the outside, it looked like I had everything that anybody could ever want. And what nobody knew was that on the inside, I was exhausted, depleted, constantly frustrated, irritated. I couldn't sleep my digestive system was just in chaos. And behind the scenes, even longer than that, because of the trauma that I had grown up with as a child, I had spent 30 years of my life with an eating disorder that began with anorexia, shifted to bulimia, and then even as it healed, first of all, an eating disorder has long-term consequences in my digestive system. And so the way it showed up for me was through leaky gut. So I haven't struggled personally with IBS, but lots of digestive issues. And so in 2014, I was diagnosed with adrenal exhaustion. I mean, severe, my body was just done. It couldn't take it anymore. And my relationship to my husband ended in divorce because I just couldn't manage everything that I had on my plate. We try so hard in this modern world to do everything and to do everything as perfectly as we can. And for so many of us, the stress of that becomes just enormous. And so I had to find a different way. And I really started working on this methodology that you will all get an eye on today. You're actually going to get the methodology, so you will be able to walk away with a tool that works. I started working on it first with myself, finding a different way, because I started studying the stress response. And, we all talk about the stress and, oh, I'm stressed, I'm exhausted, I'm this, I'm that. What we don't understand and what we're going to be talking about today is all of who we become in the stress response. It's not just that it can lead to heart disease or it can lead to cancer. It actually makes us become different human beings, psychologically, physiologically, emotionally, and even spiritually. And once I started understanding what stress did to each individual, then I developed this methodology. So, well, how do we get out of it? Right. And what you will learn today, I am not here to preach that I'm going to help you create a life filled with puppies and unicorns. Right. That would be so lovely. And yet that is not really what this work is about, or any good self-development work is about. Really good work is about teaching us how to be responsible for our states of being, so that no matter what is happening on the outside, you are able to stay calm, connected, peaceful. And that's the gift of this methodology that you're going to learn today. And so, I want to first start by asking each of you, how long in this community have you been struggling with IBS? How many years have you been struggling with IBS? Please share in the chat. And as Robin was saying, as you start sharing in the chat, is IBS, the thing about IBS and stress is they're like an infinity sign, right? They're so closely correlated. IBS leads to stress, stress contributes to IBS. So for example, research shows, I'm reading some of you right now, 20 plus years, at least 8 years, 25 years, 15 years. Oof, I can feel it. Thank you. 6 years. About a year. For some of you, it's newer, 40 years, ages. Somebody says, yeah, and you see how many of you have the exclamation point after your share. 25 years, the last 2 years have been the worst, right? It is IBS, from what I know about it, and I know the experience of stress and IBS creates such painful consequences in our bodies, minds, spirits, in our relationships. And it's one of the reasons I was so excited when Robin and Dede asked me to participate in this webinar. So what we know about IBS, right, and stress is that stress exacerbates IBS. The research says, I have my notes here, creates heartburn, bloating, cramping, nausea, digestive pains and indigestions, and intense hunger. So we're going to be talking about that in the stress response, because we are supposedly in danger, that's what your brain thinks, the digestive system shuts down. So everything that you experience when you're in the stress response, any food that you eat or you're trying to digest is not going to be digested. The metabolism actually slows down. We don't absorb nutrients and minerals as effectively because our digestive systems are supposed to be put on pause while we're busy fighting a danger. And we're going to be talking about that. So know that when you are in the stress response, your capacity to manage your IBS symptoms is going to be 10 times harder than if you're not in the stress response. The other thing is IBS exacerbates stress. From what I know, we did a poll, we're going to talk about that in a minute, what all of you have to face every day because of your IBS symptoms, right, is already hard enough. Now you have to deal with the social consequences of IBS, the emotional consequences of IBS, the relational consequences of IBS. So that adds stress to your life that many people don't even have, that is going to make your IBS even worse. So what we really want to do, the piece of the puzzle that I'm bringing you here today, if again, we think of the infinity symbol, right? It's a good way to look at it. I'm going to help you to get a tool that's actually going to teach you to decrease that stress so that IBS will be much more manageable to handle with. You will have the fuel, you will have the capacity, you will have the space, the patience to do what it is you need to do to take care of yourself without the burden of IBS. So I want to ask you guys, like, how many of you clearly see the link between stress and IBS in your life? Like, do you notice that when you are stressed, your IBS gets worse? So say yes, absolutely, no, or not sure. So absolutely, yes, yes, yeah, not sure, yes, absolutely. Some of you with big capital letters, yes. Yeah, so many of you, so not sure. Yeah, so that's something that for those of you saying not sure, that you can start tracking, right? Even as you practice this methodology that I'll be teaching you, start tracking. Interesting. Today, when I practiced the 3 steps, my IBS symptoms were better. So it'll be really interesting for you to get curious about that. And for those of you who are clear about that, then I would say for sure practice this methodology and you're going to find a huge difference. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen so that you can see my presentation. So we did a poll with the community, with the FODMAP community in Instagram, and we asked what were their top 5 sources of stress and the most stressful aspects of IBS. This is what we got in order: working, eating, dating, feeling isolated, right? You don't want to go out because of all the consequences that might happen, for example, and traveling. Same thing. So let us know in the chat, what are your top sources of stress and IBS? Is it working, eating, dating? And it might be something else too. It could be your relationship, could be children, right? Having to feed your children one diet, having to eat something else. So let me see. I don't get Robin, will you, if it's important, will you read a couple of the chats? It's hard for me to see once I share the screen. What's the community saying about the
Sure.
top
So
sources of
eating
stress?
out, pain and making plans, eating out, working and children, just eating, food, going out for food and making meals, making plans, eating out and finances,
Thank you.
aloneness, fear and loss. Yeah, isolation's a big one, I think.
I think that
I know.
the thing that
Pain.
the thing that I love the most about this community that you and Dede have created is the fact that people get to listen to each other and not feel alone about all that they're experiencing, right? Because you're reading that feeling isolated is a big one. I mean,
Yep.
just
Public
even,
speaking, eating, leaving the house to shop, COVID stress, depression.
yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep.
what's it like right now, everyone? Just to read other people, right? And what other people are struggling with, to know that you're not alone, and to know that literally today you are going to receive this wave, and you're going to see it's the simplest tool that's actually going to make a huge difference in your life. And the more we use this tool, the less of the suffering that so many of you are going through is going to be experienced. And it's why I show up to do this work every single day. So thank you for sharing all of this. And so this methodology, right? Like, what are the outcomes of using this methodology? So biggest thing that it does is it helps you reduce your overall stress levels. Second, it helps you remain calm during stressful situations, right? So we've got the overall stress that's coming down. And even as I was saying, when life is stressful, you can remain calm and patient and compassionate and open and spacious. And I promise you, this is not a pipe dream. This is what people who do this work feel every single time, even in the middle of conflict, of public speaking. Every time I get onto one of these presentations, I was telling the team before we got on, I notice my stress levels and I track it, which you're going to learn to do. And then I do the 3 steps to bring myself back to calm, because when we are in that zone of calm, we get the capacity to choose the way we want to conduct ourselves. And I promise you, you're going to learn all of that in a second. So as we know, both of these benefits can reduce the severity of your IBS symptoms and living with IBS easier, which is, I know, what Robin and Day Day, what their mission is for their creation of this community. So let's get started with this tool that we call the Feel Good Scale. As you will notice, it is one of the simplest shapes in the world. It is a triangle that is shaped, that has the colors of a traffic light. And even though this scale is really, really, really simple, you will be able to use it for the rest of your life. So pay close attention. So as you will see, I will have my cursor here. The very top is red and is called the red zone. And this is what the stress response is. We're going to tell you what this red zone is. So red zone, stress response, remember that. And notice, right, the constriction, the lack of spaciousness of this red zone. Yellow zone is where many of us live. It's somewhere between the stress response and being open and spacious of the relaxation response. So there's some level of stress, but it's not as severe as the red zone. And then this, the green zone, we could call it the Holy Grail, because everything that we long for lives in that green zone. Peace, love, joy, spaciousness, creativity, intuition, a digestive system that works well, most efficiently that it can. This all lives in the green zone, in this relaxation response, which, again, if I had known 10 years ago that how the stress response affected me, body, mind, spirit, relationships, and if I had been able to apply that to my life, I believe I would not have had adrenal exhaustion, my leaky gut, my divorce. All of that could have been prevented had I known this scale, and then how to shift myself out of the red zone or the yellow zone into the green zone. And you will notice, right, 1 to 10. So these are the feel good levels. So I want you to check in with yourself right now and just trust your intuition. Where do you spend most of your life these days on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being the most stressed out, all the time stressed out. 10, it's like being on vacation in Hawaii, right? You're open and spacious. Share in the chat where you think you live your life, most of your life right now, on a 1 to 10. And just trust the answer that comes. And Robin, will you
6.
share it with me?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
3 to 4.
Yeah.
6. 3. 5 to 6. 4. 3 to 4. 3 to 4. 5. 5. 2. 6. 3 to 7.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Robin. So what you're going to learn today as you learn to study the scale and the 3 steps is not only an in-the-moment practice to help you shift if you notice that you're at a 2 or 3 or 4, but also how to start shifting what I call your homeostatic level, where you live most of your time consistently. So when I was struggling with my eating disorder in my 20s and 30s and early 40s, I lived at a 2 or 3 fairly consistently, right? I would have periods of my life where, like when I fell in love, or when I first had my children, when I first found out I was pregnant, where I could get to a 7 or 8. But do you notice how if we are not consistently living there, we're more habituated to that. We will find a way to sabotage ourselves back into a 2 or 3. So I was most of the time at a 2 or 3. And these days, I would say the large majority of the time, I'm between an 8 and a 10. And so it is possible not to just shift our levels in the moment, which you're going to learn, but also if you keep practicing this work. And every single person that's done this work describes at least a 3 to 6 point increase. And the thing is, this is what we want, right? The red zone has all the consequences we're going to be talking about in a minute. We want to get to the green zone. So keep anchoring the scale in your mind and remembering that what we are driving to is getting to live in the green zone, which doesn't mean you're sitting on the couch eating bonbons. The green zone is a very alive place, but that's grounded and calm. So let's talk a little bit more about that red zone and that stress response. So as I imagine many of you know, the stress response is fight, flight, or freeze. Some people now have been talking about the fawn response. I'm not going to get into that now. It's a 4th response. But the fight, flight, or freeze response evolved hundreds of thousands of years ago as a way to keep us safe when predators and rival tribes, we were constantly being threatened. Our survival was constantly being threatened. So it was important to either fight the predator or the rival tribe, to run away from the predator or the rival tribe, or to freeze and act as though you're dead. That way, maybe you could escape later. Unfortunately, and maybe fortunately for most of us, of course, I am not talking about those people. There are many people like that in the world who are actually in constant danger. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those of us who have most of our safety basic needs met. We don't need this stress response to be acting so often. It actually does more harm than good. Our environment has changed, right? It doesn't have the same dangers, but our brains still operate the same way. So what are the problems with the stress response? And this is very important for you to know. Robin, I wonder if you can mute yourself just while, until people share again, because I think thank you so much. It's messing with our sound. Okay, problems with the stress response. Number 1, as I just said, it's outdated. Your brain has not caught up with the modern environment. So it is fighting, fleeing, or freezing when your husband or your partner has not emptied the dishwasher, when your kids are asking you for one more snack, when just it exaggerates what the actual dangers are, and it has not caught up with our modern times. Problem number 2, this is so important. This has saved my life. When you are in the stress response, you can literally only see what is wrong. So first of all, let me ask you if you know what I mean. Have you had those days where you're doing pretty well, you're getting along, you feel maybe even grateful for your family, for your job, for your children, for your friends, and then something really triggers you? Maybe again, your children are left a mess or something like that, and suddenly all you can see is what's wrong. What's wrong with your husband? What's wrong with your partner? What's wrong with your children? What's wrong with your boss? That is the stress response. Because when we needed to have the stress response so acutely on, if you were a caveman and you were walking out the door, you needed to be on the hyper alert for what was wrong in the environment. If you were a good caveman, you weren't walking around and just looking at the beautiful sky and seeing the beautiful flowers, right? When you were going hunting, you had to pay attention to, is there movement in the bushes? What's happening here? Oh, I just saw a shadow there. So when we are in the stress response, we are trained for what is called the negativity bias. So I want you to remember this. We are trained to look for what's wrong. I call the stress response the red zone, the great fault finder. So I'm going to teach you the signals to recognize when you're in the red zone so that you can then do the 3 steps. If you remember one thing today, is the moment you start finding fault with yourself, with others, or the world, that is one of your most obvious signals that you are in the red zone. All right. And then problem number 3, this is also just extraordinary. When you are in the red zone, your rational part of your brain, the frontal cortex, shuts down, gets kidnapped. Do you know why? Because again, if you're going out as a caveman, or even when I used to live in Boulder, you're going out hiking and there's a yellow shape that's coming down the hill, you don't want to be like, I wonder if this is a golden retriever or if it's a mountain lion, or wherever you live. I wonder if it's a person or if it's a bear, or I wonder if it's a rope or it's a snake. Whatever you've got in your environment, what you want to do in the stress response is act now, think later. I'm going to run and then I'll figure out if it's a golden retriever or a mountain lion. So literally what happens in the stress response, your frontal cortex gets kidnapped and shut down. So how does that apply to you now, right? Think about it. Think about how often you have acted before thinking. You have finished the pint of the food that makes your IBS symptoms work. You have polished a bottle of wine. You have yelled at your children or your partner. You have, not completed a deadline. Whatever it is not your fault. And we're going to be talking about that in a minute. It is the fault of the stress response. So I want you guys to just type in the chat, can you see then how many of the behaviors, the thoughts, the emotions of who you are, you can now understand are driven by you being in the red zone? And can you now, we're going to talk about this in a minute, start giving yourself a break. Hold on, I'm actually going to go to that slide because I want you to see it. Hold on, where is it? No, it's not here. For some reason, it's not here. So my favorite line to say of this work is that it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. So I want you to write that down in the chat, please. It's not my fault, but it is my responsibility. So who you become in the stress response, somebody who can only see what's wrong, somebody who acts without thinking, somebody who ends up hurting themselves or others, is reactive, is impulsive, is not your fault. And you can now start to understand that. So will you write that liberating statement? It is not my fault, but it is my responsibility. So just write that down. Take a moment. I know that I struggled, my eating disorder for 30 years. I always thought it was my fault. Every single time I would have an episode, or if I got into conflict with my husband, or whenever I acted without thinking or could only see my life as, just sucking. I can't find a prettier way to say it. I thought it was my fault. And I did a lot of self-development work with myself. I did a lot of therapy, and I couldn't understand why, in spite of all the healing that I was doing, I was still acting the way I was. I wanted to be this patient, kind human being who took good care of myself. I meditated, right? I did yoga. And yet again and again and again, I would act out in ways that were really painful, either to myself or others. So Robin, you don't need to read everybody's, but would you just unmute yourself? Are people writing? It's not my fault, but it's my responsibility.
They are. Yes.
And let yourself feel that. Because I don't think people teach us that. I think we give ourselves so much shame and criticism. I think the people who love us often can get very impatient with us. It just, because it's hard to understand. And then I want you to think about this for the people you love. You can now start understanding that who they become in the red zone, you start to understand it's not personal, which is incredible. So when my husband is cranky, which, by the way, I am back with my husband. Haven't told that part of the story yet, but because of this work, I'm back with my husband. Or when my children are cranky, or they're like, no offense, mom, but, right? And then they tell you something totally to offend you. I now can understand that it's not their fault. And I can choose to show up really differently with them than if I'm like, I can't believe they're so cranky. Why are they always so impatient? Like blah, 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 blah. So the amazing thing is, as you practice this work, you can also apply the it's not your fault to others as well. Doesn't mean you excuse poor behavior, but you can bring compassion to poor behavior and not take it personally. So one of the greatest gifts of this methodology is you becoming a ninja of the signs that you are in the red zone. Because the sooner you learn what the signs are that you're in the red zone, the sooner you can get yourself out. So I want you to become a ninja of that. Like, let's take a look at it. Remember, you're in fight, flight, or freeze. Your whole body and mind are oriented towards one thing and one thing only: to help you survive. So check out the warning signs. Of course, you have tense muscles. You're supposed to fight or flight. Racing heartbeat, because your body is trying to bring all the energy to your extremities. You're breathing fast, same thing. You're trying to get yourself ready to fight, flight, or freeze. So I want you, as I tell you the why of these signals, start looking for your signals. What are the signals you recognize from these graphs that let you know that you are in the stress response? My voice gets very loud. Like, I am trying to make my point and I am trying to win over you, right? I am in the red zone. Some people shut down, right? So you might be somebody who doesn't speak up. Many of us have clenched jaw. Mindset. Remember, you're thinking you're in danger. Of course, you're going to be thinking, how do I get out of this danger? What do I do about this lion that's out there? But there isn't a lion that's out there. So look at what happens. Look at this signal that you're in the red zone. Racing thoughts, negative beliefs about self, the sense that life is out of control, worry, rumination, a sense of overwhelm, and, as I said to you, difficulty making decisions. So again, check out these signals and share. And then when I'm done sharing all the signals, Robin, we'll see if we can pull out a few. Let's move on to emotional signals. If you notice anxiety, fear, frustration, anger, reactivity, the freeze response is numbness, right? Sadness, hopelessness. These are all signals that you are in the red zone and that it's not your fault, but you have a responsibility to get yourself to the green zone. And I'm going to teach you how. Finally, Look at this in relationship, who we become in the red zone. We become critical, blaming. We don't listen, right? There's no way we're going to listen. We're in fight-flight mode. We become suspicious. We become defensive. For some of us who have the more flee response, we withdraw. And then the general piece, remember, we have no control over rational thoughts, over rational actions. So for many of us, the red zone manifests in what we call false good habits. I'll be talking about that in a minute. Overeating, over drinking, overworking, too much shopping, either under exercise or over exercise. And for some people, you know, it's pot and other drugs that they do. So take a look, right? I'm going to show you this chart again. What are your signals that let you know that you are in the red zone? And the quicker you recognize them, the more you'll be able to practice the methodology. So do you want to unmute yourself, Robin, and see what people are saying?
I'm going to start it off. For me, it's rumination.
Thinking, right?
Yep, processing it over and over and over in my head, not letting it go.
Yeah, for me, because again,
anxiety.
One
person says anxiety. Withdrawing and over exercising. Yep, tense muscles, anxiety. Yeah, we process this all differently, but we all have, we are processing it, aren't we? Tight chest.
Good.
Tense muscles, tight jaw, loud voice, anxiety, drinking too much, being defensive, racing thoughts.
Yeah, I'm going to move it to emotions, right? Reactivity. I always kind of joke and kind of don't. Who I become in the red zone is not a person that I'm proud of, but it's not my fault.
Feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And now, right, everybody, you can start trusting that this is
repetitive blaming. That's interesting. Repetitive blaming. Yep.
Yeah, well, we can only see the world through the negativity bias. So of course we're going to blame. It's not our fault. It's just what our brain is oriented to find what's wrong. So thank you for sharing, and keep sharing, of course, everybody. But let's move on, because I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about the green zone. So, you know, there's always like this moment when we're talking about the red zone that I can feel it in my own body. And then when I do the shift to talk about the green zone, so the green zone is the relaxation response. And that occurs when the body and the mind believe you are safe. As we know as well, and this is so important for people with IBS, it is also called the rest and digest response, right? So this is why now we can digest. So I guess the stress response could be called the rush and indigest response. And so the signals that let you know in the green zone, again, your body feels safe, you don't feel like there's an intruder that you have to fight or some danger. So check it out, and please write, what are your signals that let you know that you are in the green zone? Because the more you know the signals, the more you can be like, oh God, I'm in the green zone. And when you do the 3 steps, good, I got to it. And then you keep practicing staying there. So you see, they're all the opposites of the red zone. You have relaxed muscles, steady heartbeat. Your belly is relaxed, which I know with IBS is not an easy thing. Your jaw is relaxed. My voice completely changes in the green zone. The thoughts that you have are calm. You trust yourself. You trust the world. Like, it's the opposite of mistrust and blaming. You feel creative. You feel focused, you feel engaged. Remember I was saying the relaxation response isn't just like you sitting on the couch and eating bonbons. Look at this. You're actually very engaged in the world, but with a deep sense of calm. Emotions, look at these. Do you see how I said, I don't know why I spoke about the Holy Grail. It's an interesting thing because the Holy Grail, I don't know if anybody actually ever gets to it. This you can get to. Green zone you can actually get to once you know the map. So inspired, enthusiastic, sense of humor, right? We can laugh in the green zone. You feel grateful, grounded, and peaceful. So those are the emotions. So just track which ones are yours, and we'll go to the last two. And in general, I literally, guys, when we are at a 7 to 10 on that feel good scale, all my binging habits out the window. I just don't even have the desire to overeat. I don't have the desire to drink too much or to do any of these things because it literally doesn't match what your brain and your mind are, where they are at. So it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Look at who we are in relationships. Compassionate, we listen actively because we have space, right? Think of the triangle. Do you see how the green zone is at the bottom of the triangle? Do you see the spaciousness? When you're in the red zone, you're completely constricted, ready to fight, flight, or freeze. In the green zone, you're open, you speak kindly to others. You can collaborate, whether it's with your children or coworkers, and you are respectful. So are there a few green zone signals we want to read before we share the 3 steps to shift us out, Robin?
Okay, I have to go back through. Hold on, the chat has gone through. So we have a lot of relaxed muscles, calm thoughts, easier breathing, steadier heartbeat, positive thought, focus, creativity, calm thoughts, inspired and grounded, sense of humor, feeling hopeful. Let's see, hold on, safe, feeling less isolated, seeing the beauty in the same views that were so ugly before.
Oh, I love that so much. That is exactly it. It's like when I'm in the red zone, we call it the red zone lens versus the green zone lens. When I'm in the red zone, it's like a horror movie, right? Everything I see as having fault, including myself. And when I'm in the green zone, you know the allergy commercial, I can see clearly now, right? And it lifts, right? The commercial lifts and suddenly you see everything brightly. I love what that person says. It's like, you know, when you first fall in love and you feel like that, like the whole world looks different, that's the green zone. So that was really beautifully said. So that's what we call the green zone lens. So thank you for sharing that. So here are the 3 steps. You will likely never forget them because we've made them so easy, right? That your brain doesn't have to think about it. Your brain doesn't have to figure it out. You're just going to learn them today. And if you practice them, you will never forget. And you know what else? You will never stop using them. I have been doing this work for 10 years. I invented these steps and every single day I still use them. The other day I was finishing my lunch and I was rushed and I was like, oh, I'm just going to go get a candy. And I was like, wait, hold on, stop. And then slow down, which is the second step. We're going to talk about it. And I was like, do I really need the candy? It's like, oh no, that was just unconscious choice because I was rushing. And so the problem isn't having gotten the candy ever. The problem is that I'm trying to help with you all is that we lose the capacity to choose consciously, right? Because our neocortex, our frontal cortex is kidnapped. I want to help you recover the power of conscious choice. What you choose to do, that's up to you, as long as you're willing to deal with the consequences. That is never anything that I'm here to teach you, but I am here to teach you how to recover the power of choice. And this is what this work does. All right, ready? Step number 1. Stop is the first one. Remember traffic light. Remember you're in the red zone. Don't believe what you're thinking or feeling. Don't trust any of your impulses. Oh, I want to go have a piece of candy. Oh, I really want to go and tell my husband that he should have taken the trash and I'm so fed up with that. And don't take any action. Remember, you're seeing the world through a distorted lens. This has saved me so many times, whether I'm about to take action towards someone else Or, you know, those days you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, okay, I'll speak for myself. I'm getting so old, or maybe we're thinking I'm fat today, or whatever it is. And now just go, oh, I'm in the red zone. Oh, I'm not going to believe that voice. You know, we could call the voice the critic. That's often the way people call that. That's actually the red zone. The way you're seeing the world, the lens through which you perceive the world is not to be trusted. It's literally distorted. So stop. First step. Nope, not going to think it. Step number 2, so simple and yet so profound. So now you're moving yourself to yellow. Ooh, I can feel it in myself by slowing down and breathing. So research has found that taking 5 to 10 deep abdominal breath, not the thoracic breath of the stress response, but the deep breath of the relaxation response, is the single fastest way to tell your body that you are safe, that it doesn't have to go into the stress response. So even though we hear, oh, breathe, 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 we have to understand there's a reason you hear that everywhere. It is the bridge that's going to move you from red to yellow and then to green. And then step number 3, right? Traffic light, green, go. So we're going to talk about feel-good habit. For some people, I call it feel-good habit because this work can be very deeply spiritual as well. We're not going to focus on that today, but I'll tell you a little secret. Dr. Andrew Weil, which I imagine many of you know, called the relaxation response the God response. And the reason he called it that is because all the highest aspirations that we long for as human beings, what we might call a connection to God, live in that relaxation response. So we call them feel-good habits, and then some people like to call them feel-good habits. So this step is very, very, very important. So you have stopped, you have slowed down and breathe, right? And now you engage in an activity that allows you to feel good, like getting some fresh air or listening to your favorite song. But this is a vital next piece. Be sure to anchor the feeling good feelings for at least 15 seconds to rewire your brain. So I'm not just telling you, go take a bath and I'll see you later. I am telling you that, do you remember that negativity bias that literally makes us forget anything that's good in our life? Research tells us that if you anchor positive feelings for at least 15 to 30 seconds, your brain starts to rewire itself to start remembering the positive. Isn't that incredible? So that when you do the thing, call a friend, God, we're going to talk about habits in a moment. I'm going to give you some examples. If you actually slow it down and really give yourself the feelings of enjoyment, you are rebuilding your brain to put in it's what's called the implicit memory, these feelings of feeling good, so that next time you're in the red zone, it's going to be harder for you to completely forget the good feelings. So it excites me so much because the work that I do, and I think that's why Dede and Robin really like the work that I do, yes, it's psychology. Yes, there's a lot of spirituality to it, but there's a lot of science behind it. And that's why we love this work so much, right, Robin?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I also would love to just refer people back also to come back over a lot of the content on our site supports exactly what you're saying. So for people who have IBS, when we talk about engaging in an activity, and I know you're going to go into that next step around the sort of the false good habits and the feel good habits, that a lot of us actually have become experts at following our false good habits, right? So we think they make us feel good, but they don't. They actually, in the long run, hurt us. They are temporary. They're bad substitutions. And so, to be able to ground some of what you're going to say next, there's a lot of resources on the website that very specifically call out what those are, and we'll send you the links along with all the other resources after this as well.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So what Robin is talking about, And this is something that we all love so much. Again, think about, and I don't mean it in a religious way, right? But think about false gods, right? What do we know about false gods? Is they promise us that we're going to feel great, and then they don't tell us that then we're going to feel like crap. So false good habits are habits we act out from the red zone, right? I smoked for many years. I used to love smoking, but it was a false good habit. Like, I felt good the first few puffs, and then I felt like crap afterwards. If I have too many cookies, for me, right, or if I eat gluten, for me, I initially feel so good to have that gluten. And so temporarily I go out of the red zone, and for what? A minute, 2 minutes, maybe an hour if I'm lucky. I feel good. It brings me to the green zone. And then guess what happens? Right back to that red zone. Feel good habits are the opposite. Sometimes they require a little more planning. It's easier to go and get the bagel, with gluten for me when I go to the coffee shop. But then I'm going to feel like crap. And it's like, no, wait a minute. I know that gluten hurts me, and I need to make sure to have brought a snack or to be going outside if I'm like, oh, I'm just going to sit on the couch. So feel good habits often require a little more thinking and planning, but they're worth it because they take you to the green zone and they keep you there. And the piece that I love is they rewire your brain. They rewire your brain. False good habits rewire your brain to stay in the red zone. Feel good habits rewire your brain to learn to more and more consistently become a green zone human being.
I want to also interject around that. One of the things that I found to be true is that you have to also do a little digging as to what actually you're trying to resolve with that false good habit. So, like you use the example of going to every morning and getting a bagel, but you know that the bagel gives you a terrible stomach ache. But the reality is, part of what you're doing is also having a social interaction. You're getting out of your house. Maybe you actually really enjoy talking to the person who serves you that bagel every single day. So the replacement for that isn't necessarily that you don't go to the bagel place. It's that you bring the food that you can eat and you just buy the tea or the coffee or the thing that is okay for you to have, and that you're really clear on what it is about that false good habit that actually is being satisfied. I think that that's an important thing. So putting something in place that replaces that aspect of it is essential. And then you really have to ask that.
We do, in the Breakthrough Challenge, we do the work of asking what deeper need is the false good habit trying to meet. And so I simplify to say, is it peace? Is it love? Is it joy? One of my favorite quotes in the whole world that changed my life was Janine Roth, who wrote the book When Food is Love. And she said, what if every single thing we ever did had a greater purpose? No, what if there's a perfectly good reason for everything we do? That sentence, I was in the middle of my eating disorder, changed my life because it was the first time that I thought, what if my eating disorder had a perfectly good reason? And I started asking myself the exact questions, Robin, that you were just saying. And I realized for me, I felt temporary peace when I acted out my eating disorder. And that's what I was looking for. So then I started for other things to do, other feel-good habits to do that brought me peace, but did not have all the red zone consequences that a binge and purge cycle had. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yep.
Yeah. And so these are, there's an article that we wrote in FODMAP. These are scientifically proven feel-good habits that you can use. And what I want to make sure that you know is find yours, right? For somebody, it might be golf. It would never be golf for me. While someone else, it might be tennis, or it might be calling a friend. So first of all, find your own feel-good habits. Think about when you were a child. What did you used to do? Ask friends. What are the things you do? And then what I love about this work is you can also, I call them internal feel-good habits or external. So internal ones are like journaling, meditating. These are things that are internally that are going to change your internal world. And then external ones are like, oh, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to dance, I'm going to work out. And so having a mix of habits is really important. And then finally being prepared for them. If you're like, oh yeah, it's going outside, and no one ever go to nature, it feels so much better. Well, if your shoes aren't ready and you don't have a coat ready, you're like, oh, forget it. I'm going to do a false good habit. I'm just going to turn to those cookies. So setting yourself up for success with your feel good habits is a really, really important piece of this work. So I'm going to stop the share. I want to go back. I want to just go back to the 3 steps real quick. Hold on. Let me do that. No, I think I'm going to recap it without the image. So everyone, what I want to remember is there are 2 steps to this. Number 1 is awareness. You look at yourself on the feel good scale. Where are you at? If you are in red or yellow, then you practice the 3 steps of stop, slow down and breathe, and go. And that's it. And that will literally change your life if you practice that consistently.
Thank you. I was still muted there. Thank you so much. First of all, I would love to give people an opportunity before we close this down for any remaining questions. And also to let you know, for those of you who joined us on Facebook, if you did not register, I will put a link that you can give us your email address so that we can send you all of the references from today from this conversation. But I'm wondering, I wanted just to open it out if there's anyone that has any questions that they'd like to ask Isabelle before we close down for today.
Yeah, or something you're taking away. Like, I would love, like, what's the takeaway that you've got that you're going to practice? It could be, it's not my fault, but it's my responsibility. It could be starting to recognize the signals of the different zones. It could be, I'm going to practice the 3 steps. Like, yeah, what are some of the takeaways or the questions you've got for me?
While people are thinking about that, I just wanted to remind everyone also, it says the 3 steps for sure. I think they will help a lot.
Great.
I love the 3 steps, especially the final piece, as meditation alone doesn't last.
I'm going to say something real quick about that, Maren. If you're really, really in the red zone, like if you're at 1, 2, doing something like meditation or journaling is not going to work. You have too much energy ready to fight, flight, or freeze. So what I find, if I'm really up in the red zone, is I first do some movement to discharge some of that extra energy, and then I can meditate and journal. And people don't often teach that. If you tell me to meditate when I'm like at a 1, I'm not going to be able to do it. And then I'm going to be like, oh, I can't do any of this. This is not going to work. So just find a way to discharge some of that vital energy, and then you'll be able to meditate. So it's a really important piece.
Petro says, thank you. This was terrific. I will be practicing. It's not my, whoops.
I know it moves up.
It moves. Sorry, here we go. I will be practicing. It's not your fault and adopting the 3 steps. Carol Ann says, a greater self-awareness of what zone I'm in. And Maren says, thank you. Yeah, because I go learn more about the application of this work. Yep, there's a link here. You will receive that also by email. That's the feelgoodlife.com/challenge. That's happening on September 7th through 15th. It is free. Again, I'd like you all to know that. Laziness and the habit of emotional laziness when in the red zone, even when you recognize it, is a safe place to numb out.
Yeah, and laziness. Yes. So let me share the screen real quick so that I can show you the scale. Guys, laziness, think about fight, flight, or freeze. We don't want to act. This is the freeze response. It's like, don't take action. And so we call it laziness. We give ourselves a hard time about it. But hey, what if it's not your fault, right? You're stressed out, but what is your responsibility? And now you might do the 3 steps and realize that what you need is rest. Like Robin was so beautifully saying, I actually need rest. It's not laziness. Or you might realize it's a red zone false good habit that you're doing in order to feel safe. So really take your time before you call any of your habits painful names, because they're actually really rich. And just get clear, is it a false good habit or is it a feel good habit? So that's the scale I wanted to make sure to share.
Maren says that the Facebook page isn't available at the moment, so just want folks to know that I will set up a post with the link for being able to get all of this information. Thank
I
you
love
for
it.
letting me know.
And I love somebody says, thank you, food for thought, right? And it's just, this work is like eating a wonderful feel-good meal. Like, let it metabolize in you. Join us for the 7 days. You will go deep into this methodology, and I really promise you, who you will come out on the other side of the 7 days is very different. And we have you pick one life area, and health, relationships, career and finances, or spirituality. So you pick one life area and you really focus on it. And I promise you, it'll go up. We commit to it going up by at least 1 to 2 points by the end of the 7 days.
So we are now at 3:01. I know for some folks they're in their lunch hour, and other people, they have just taken this hour. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and for Isabelle yet again joining us. It's always such a pleasure to have you and the team, Philip and Rhea. Thank you also for helping set this all up. I really do encourage folks to drop on over also to the Facebook group that Isabelle has for her team, and then you'll also get an opportunity to see what else is going on for them. And I hope that this has been helpful. I know Dede and I have been really excited to keep bringing you Isabelle's work, and we'll give you another opportunity in a couple of other months as well. So hope everyone's doing well. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
And thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye.